The waves were angry that night. Fishermen abandoned their boats, and thunder crawled across the sky like a living beast. But one man stood at the edge of the shore, unmoved. His cloak whipped in the wind, and his eyes were fixed on the horizon, as if daring the storm itself to defy him. Then he stepped forward, not onto the sand, but into the water, and the sea obeyed. Boats groaned against their ropes as the wind shoved them like toys. Lamps swung and rattled. The beach, usually full of laughter and bargaining and the smell of smoked fish, had turned into a theater of panic. Clouds pressed low, dragging their bellies across the water, and distant cliffs vanished in a drowning curtain of rain. He waded through it all. Some called him foolish, some whispered that he was a prophet, some simply stared. A few of his friends, weather-scarred men who knew the language of storms, were out there somewhere, swallowed by the black mouth of the lake. He didn't pace. He didn't wring his hands. He simply watched the seam where sky married water, as if listening for a note only he could hear. The first crack of lightning revealed a shape far from shore. A boat, pitched high, then swallowed. Pitched high again, then smothered. He could almost see faces, lifted like moons, pale and desperate. He could imagine hands gripping wood, knuckles burning white. He could hear their voices shredded by wind. A boy appeared beside him, bare feet wet with foam. "Sir," the boy said, voice trembling. "No one goes out now, not even the bravest." The man nodded without moving his eyes. "They aren't brave now," he said, almost to the sea, almost to himself. "They're afraid." "Afraid of what?" He did not answer. The boy followed his gaze and saw only drowning blackness and drifting flashes of light. Another wave lunged, broke, and flung its white arms toward the shore. Spray hit their faces. The boy wiped his eyes and tasted salt and rain. The man blinked once, slow, like someone waking from a dream, and then he stepped forward. Sand became froth. Froth became water. Water became a path that did not sink. The boy gasped and stumbled backward. Lamps on the shore stuttered and flamed as people shouted. He walked with the calm of a shepherd crossing a field. Wind bent around him as if embarrassed. The surface that had chewed boats like dry bread lifted itself to bear his weight. He did not hurry. Out where the boat bucked and cried, men leaned over the gunwale, pointing, their hair pasted to their skulls. Someone screamed, someone prayed, someone laughed a laugh that sounded like a sob torn in half. "Ghost!" one of them yelled. He lifted a hand. The storm did not quiet, not yet, but the word ghost broke and fell into the water. "It's me," he called. Voice carried on a wind that seemed, for one breath, to obey. The men stared with a terror that tasted of hope. "Don't be afraid." A man in the boat, thick-armed, with the eyes of someone who had spent his life reading horizons, leaned forward as if trying to see his future on the face that approached. "If it's you," he shouted, "tell me to come." The others grabbed his cloak, barking nonsense. The question hung between thunderbeats. Then the one walking the water smiled, not with his mouth, but with his whole being, and said, "Come." The fisherman clambered onto the edge of the boat. The planks made a sound like a heart breaking. He hesitated only long enough to remember that he had always wanted to be braver than his fear. Then he stepped down onto something that, by every law he had ever trusted, should have swallowed him whole. It held. One step, another. The storm appeared to pause. Curious, he kept his eyes fixed ahead, and the water became floor, and the lake became a road, and for a stitch of time, the universe made room for a bigger truth than gravity. Then the wind, embarrassed at being ignored, shouted. He turned, just for a heartbeat, to see the size of the wave he had conquered, and in that heartbeat, he remembered the word drowning. The floor vanished. The road collapsed. Cold claws gripped his calves, his thighs. He sank with a strangled cry, arms thrashing, mouth flooding. A hand caught him, not from above, but with him, sleeves soaked, shoulders braced, a grip like iron and kindness. He was yanked upward into air that felt too thin to breathe. "Why did you doubt?" the man asked, but his tone carried no knife. It was wonder, not accusation, like someone marveling at a friend who forgot his own name. They climbed into the boat together. The wood, moments ago a coffin, became a cradle. Rain still fell, but the tantrum drained from the sky as if someone had pulled a thorn from its heel. Waves softened. Lamps steadied. The lake, shamed, smoothed its skin. In the hush that followed, the men stared at him as people do at a mountain they always thought was a rumor. One by one, they let go of ropes and reasons. One by one, they realized their hands had stopped shaking. He looked around, at weather-beaten faces, at the boy who had crept into the boat from nowhere and now crouched near a coil of rope with eyes like full moons, and he laughed softly, like a father noticing his children had survived their first storm. They rowed without orders. The oars slipped and lifted, water now a friend escorting them to shore. By the time the beach appeared, as a blur of lanterns and bodies and uplifted hands, the night had exhaled. Somewhere, a dog barked twice and then lay down to sleep. The first idea of dawn touched the edges of clouds. On the beach, people surged forward, reaching as if hunger itself had hands. He stepped out, and the lake, obedient to its better memory, released him without a sound. Sick voices begged. Mothers held out limp bundles. Old men shook with effort not to drop to their knees. He moved through them quietly, touching heads and cheeks and shoulders as if blessing were as ordinary as breathing. Somewhere behind him, the fisherman, who had sunk and then been held, stood knee-deep in water, tasting in his mouth the strange sweetness of being saved. Was it a trick? Someone asked the boy, grabbing his sleeve. "Tell me, did you see him float?" The boy shook his head with the seriousness of a witness. "No," he said. "I saw the wind bow. I saw the sea carry him like a king. I saw a man step down from fear, as if it were only a stool." "What do you call him?" the voice pressed. The boy looked out at the lake, now mild as a sleeping animal. He thought of the hand that held, the smile that steadied, the word that stopped his heart from tearing itself in two. He didn't know names big enough. He simply said, "He told us not to be afraid." When the sun finally broke open the belly of the night, it found footprints on the shore that wandered a little and then straightened. A boat pulled high on the sand, men whose mouths could not manage ordinary conversation, and a lake that, for one long moment in the dark, had remembered it was not in charge. People would retell the tale badly, the way people always do. Some would say the storm failed. Some would say the trick was in the timing. Some would swear they had seen the bottom through the wave and there was a stone path, or that the wind had dropped at just the right second, or that panic had made the eyes lie. But on nights when wind bullied the water and lamps flickered like frightened hearts, the memory returned. A figure stepping where no foot should find purchase, a hand catching where no help should arrive, a voice threading order through chaos, and every storm since then has had hidden in its throat a secret the sea cannot forget. The waves were angry that night. Fishermen abandoned their boats, and thunder crawled across the sky like a living beast. But one man stood at the edge of the shore, unmoved. He stepped forward into the water, and the sea obeyed.